So I'm here with Becca Gillen, and this is a conversation I'm not really prepared for. I've got a beautiful young woman sitting across me here, and she's in her early 30s, and I'm always intrigued. Okay, I'm nearly 50, so kind of I'm old hat a little bit when it comes to breathing, but it's absolutely super to see younger people coming into it. So Becca, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'd love to kind of get to know your thoughts a little bit, but before we start, just maybe a little bit of your background. I know you're from Salt Hill down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
okay, I'll try and break it down a little bit. So I am from Galway. I'm 34. I went to college in UL. I did a degree in computer science there. Hated it. Went to, career guidance counsellor after that. She told me that everything I was, let's say, destined for, all the aptitude tests and all that, were health and medical related. So she told me to go back and do medicine. I said, I'm not going back to do medicine after doing 4 years. So I ended up going to London, and I did children's nursing over there, and I worked in the intensive care unit over there. And I did that for 6 years, and just physically and mentally was awful. Like, my health, even though I was working in a healthcare setting, my own health was the worst it had ever been. And I had a lot of health issues while I was nursing as well, and I just always put it down to being out of routine, doing shift work, working nights, working in a high stress, high pressure job. We're at the busiest hospital in central London, especially for labour ward and deliveries. So although I wasn't on the labour ward, I got all the premature babies. It was very, very high stress job. So in my mind, I had a bit of a struggle because I tried a lot of different careers, and I was thinking,
it's almost like you feel a pressure.
Yeah, pressure.
Are people going to think I'm a bit of a waster here?
Exactly. And I was, I don't know what age I was, maybe 28, I don't know, but at that age when you're supposed to be in quotations, like supposed to be
28 is young, but
I know
but
that
when
now
you are 28, you actually feel that this is when you should have your ducks lined in a row. You
should have everything together, and you feel you do feel that external pressure, and why don't I have my career lined up for me? Is this I'm supposed to be getting engaged? You're supposed to be getting a house, all that stuff. And I was trying to follow a path that I think everyone else wanted for me. And I just realised at the core of it, I was like, I'm not happy. I feel stressed all the time. And even though I loved nursing, the lifestyle it just wasn't for me. So I had to have this battle, okay, I'm going to give this up now. And now what am I going to do? What path am I going to take now? So anyways.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
First, the point is, why aren't all kids in school doing aptitude tests to try and direct them and find out what's their values?
Yeah.
What skill set?
Skills.
Like, it's not about finding your passion.
Yeah.
Very few people find their passion in life, So sometimes when we set a goal, find your passion. Forget about finding your passion. When I come out of school, I knew what I didn't want to do. I had no idea what I wanted to do. But if there was an aptitude test like that would have saved you 3-4 years doing a degree. The second thing is your decision. When you're in that role and there's so much psychological pressure because it's almost that you're acting your life out based on people's perception of you. It takes quite a lot of bravery to step into the unknown. How do you make your decisions? Were you making it on logic, or were you just fed up with it? Or did you feel there was something in your gut? There's something out there for me, but I'm not quite sure what it was.
I think I maybe didn't know in my gut there was something else for me, but I knew that what I was doing wasn't for me.
Yes.
So, and I kind of thought, well, I tried this, it didn't work. And I got over it and I found something else, and actually I did enjoy it, but it's still not the right one. So let me give that up, try another thing. I didn't care if it was going to take me 50 things, but all I knew was that, right, this isn't working. So let me just, I tried it wasn't for me, let's give it up and go again. And I think it didn't really matter to me at that point because I'd already, let's say, failed once. So I didn't care after that. I was like, well, I gave it up, and even though this isn't the exact right one, it was better than the last one. And I was sick of being miserable. I had a good life, but I wasn't,
You had a good life from the outside to people, but not internally in terms of what's going on.
And I didn't care at that point. I was willing to give something up and try again, and I knew eventually that I'd get there. And
did you, by the way?
Yeah. So now, how many years on? Now I still am helping people. I still am very health focused, and I do feel very fulfilled in my role now. So what I'm doing now is, I do a combination of breath work, heart rate training, and heat and cold exposure. So deliberate heat and cold exposure, helping people build up their, I guess, physical responses, adaptation to heat, cold, to training, and also their mental toughness and mental resilience, let's say, by overcoming trauma, by overcoming fear of, let's say, ice baths, overcoming 60 seconds in the ice bath can be huge for them on the outside world, because they know that they can take that tool and apply it to any stressful situation on the outside. So I'm over in Indonesia most of my time, and now I'm starting to travel with what I'm doing, which is great, because I'm not a home bird, but I also don't really like to be fully settled in one place. So it's great because it's obviously evolved, where I've just come back to Galway for what I thought was a holiday and ended up doing a lot of events that are all sold out. So I can see just how popular it is and how people are, it's in such demand. People want to learn. There is a big focus on health and wellness. People are spending a lot more money on wellness instead of drink, which is good. I think in my age group and even younger, I was at a wedding last weekend. A lot of my friends, it must have been over 100 of us, and a huge portion of that crew weren't drinking at all, and they just chosen.
Because that's not the Ireland I grew up
in.
Is it because they were looking at our parents, and our parents were
I think we did too much of it when we were growing up. We would have been, definitely binge drinkers. All our teens, early 20s, we all lived in London, young and single, you're out all the time. And I think we just got fed up of it. I'll still have a few drinks, but nothing like back then.
But this is the thing that often, we did it too, but we didn't stop. We kept going. So there's a difference. You're early 30s, we're still doing it. So, what is going on in the minds of the young person now? First, before we start though, if you were to roll back the clock to the point that you were 17, what would you have liked to have discovered? Could you have done it any differently? I knew that was the way it was back then, but was there anything that you could apply?
I think I would have just not have been so strict with myself and rigid. Even, back then I didn't know anything about mindset, but probably if I didn't go to college at 17, I probably would have figured it out. I used to do dancing at the time. I used to get paid for it, so I had money there. I enjoyed dancing, so I was still into exercise, we used to travel around the country doing dancing. I'm sure I would have figured it out, but I would have been much freer, and I think that would have helped with putting less pressure on myself, because I am a high achiever, but also did back then, a bit of a perfectionist as well. So, and then I was thinking, okay, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And then I do them. So not that I wasn't able to do them. I do them and I was like, okay, I don't feel good though. I think, even with the pressure of the Leaving Cert and stuff now, it's too much. It's too much pressure. And you need to be, you're still a kid at 17. You need to be a kid and just be a bit more freer and not think that the world revolves around your Leaving Cert points.
Because innately, and you said it, okay, you're a perfectionist, you're a high achiever, you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And there are many people, and they go through school, they get into university, and if they're lacking the drive, they're still not going to do it irrespective of what they have. So I think drive is huge.
Yeah.
But there's also another aspect. Drive and knowing which direction you want to put that to.
Yeah, a passion project or not. Driving and pushing for something that you're just not interested in is stress. And driving towards something that you are interested in is a passion. So there's a big difference between I work all day, every day, and anytime now, because I love it and I know that I truly love doing it, whereas I probably did less hours or even the same amount on something I hated, and my body and my mind were just I was at my wit's end, you know, physically and mentally. So I think in growing up, even when I was in my 20s, let's say 10 years ago, like there was still a lot of mental health issues, but you know, being in Ireland, there's, you know, that taboo, stigma as well, people aren't willing to talk. And I think back then I was somebody that did talk about, right, I'm not happy where I am, when I was at this point where I was going to quit nursing. And I started talking on Instagram about it, which was, you know, not that big back then. And the amount of people on it was a lot smaller. And that's what's actually got my following, was talking about quitting what I hated. Not hated, I loved the nursing, but I wasn't happy. And I didn't care what I was going to do next. I just knew that I couldn't continue as I was. And that's what got the interest in my Instagram. It wasn't anything to do with exercise or fitness at the time. It was me saying, no, if you're not happy, you know, you'll figure it out. Just, you know, I wasn't going to quit and have no money. I need to save a bit of money and
but
decide.
People can resonate about it.
Yeah.
Like if you see life, do you think, what defines your happiness?
I think...
is it finance? Is it...
Oh, definitely not money. I think freedom, health, adventure, you know, quality time with family and friends and fun. So those things, you know, I wish I was living the lifestyle or how I'm feeling now back then, because I'd say I was the most stressed I ever was in my life in my late teens and early 20s, because you're trying to figure life out. You're having, you know, you've no responsibility either, but you're also figuring yourself out. You're figuring out your personality. You're trying to fit in socially, academically. There's a lot of pressure. So I think one good thing that from now is that people have a lot more options. Whereas years ago, it's like, okay, you know, in, let's say, my parents' generation, you either do, you're a teacher or you work in the bank, you don't have that many options. Whereas now people are going abroad, you're integrating with different cultures, different ways of living, different mindsets, which is huge. I think
traditions are broken.
Yeah, and you're learning.
Yeah. But isn't there there's something very motivating though, coming from a dark place.
Yeah.
I was in a job I absolutely hated it. And it gave me a tremendous motivation that when I was going then, because going into the breathing space was back in 1998, I started working in 2002, it was unknown. But because I hated my previous job, now one was really good. I was in the corporate space. I was working for a multinational, an American multinational. And the stress levels were too high, and you know, there was so much pressure put on the employees, and then I had to put it on the people below me, and I wasn't fit for that. But when I come out of that gave me a motivation, and I was ready. The harshness of it gave me the motivation to keep sticking with what I was doing, and it gave me that little bit of resilience.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, when we're faced with adversity, it can turn into something lovely.
100%. And I think you won't get that high, or you won't figure things out if you haven't been to, let's say, the really low place. And I don't think that there'll be anyone listening that has never experienced some sort of hardship. And if they say they haven't, I don't believe them. But I think you are building up that resilience if you're able to get over a place of, you know, confusion, anger. You know, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know where to go, but all you need to do is keep going, put one foot in front of the other, just focus on things day by day, hour by hour, and you know, you will figure
do your
it
best.
out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And if it's not one thing, like I must have done at least 100 different things, like from working in an ice skating ring, I was in the circus at one point, I was working out in one of the medical device factories in the industrial estate, anything. I no, that's not for me. Tick that one off, start again. And it did take, hopefully people will find their what they do enjoy a little bit earlier than, you know, me. It's taken me a long time, but...
Could this be coming back to this, that is there much in terms of that analysis that you did, that your school teacher, like I feel, or the university person, the guidance teacher putting you say, you should be in health. Like, that's amazing. You know, okay, because that automatically narrows it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can refocus.
Yeah.
So your journey into breathing, how did that happen?
So I got COVID in August 2021, and then that turned into long COVID literally straight after I had the COVID. When I got COVID, it was quite bad. I was actually really surprised. I was in Budapest at the time, and I remember just going up, like, they have these really, really old buildings, and there isn't lifts in a lot of them. So I remember going up about 10 steps and being like, okay, I have to stop for a minute now. And I didn't have a bag or anything. And then I did a test, and so I had COVID, and I was in bed with it for probably 7 days just because it took too much energy to get up. I could go to the toilet just about 10 steps, 10 step back, then fatigue again. So, and breathlessness. So anyways, I had long COVID from September 21 until I'd say this time last year, so, June, July last year, maybe even August. So the worst part of it for me was the chronic fatigue, because I am a very active person. I love exercising and working a lot. I couldn't do anything. I was sleeping almost all of the time.
Was it making you anxious?
The only thing that would make me anxious would be, okay, I've got work to do, and how am I going to do it if I can't focus? And how am I going to do training videos or exercise if I don't have any energy or if I can't breathe properly? So that was really, really bad. And I guess with any chronic illness, that impacts your serotonin levels, your everything. So my mental health, I've had a few times in my life where my mental health has gone down. So I'm used to it at this stage. If I feel a certain way, I can at least acknowledge it and be aware of it a lot earlier. So I was thinking, okay, something isn't right here again now. But I realised it's because everything in my normal routine was taken away from me. So exercising, I couldn't go to dinner, I couldn't socialise because it was too much energy. It took too much energy from me, even just sitting down with a group of people. I'd have to try and talk to this person, then someone says something over here, and it was too much. It would just really drain me. So I couldn't socialise. I'd have to meet people one-on-one, but most of the time they'd have to pop into me. I couldn't go out because it's too much energy to go out and,
So when thoughts then start coming, because it's very easy, I can only imagine myself, I'm lying there, I'm young, I want to conquer the world, and it's almost that this condition is taken over. It would be very easy to start dwelling on it and overthinking. So did you notice ever that your mind was going into that space, that you were lost in this train of thought, or did it happen? Did you observe the thoughts? Did you have any strategy then to help quieten the mind? I'm curious at that aspect of it.
I think there was a couple of things going on at one time which made it even more difficult to try and break down. I have a very logical mind anyway. At this time I'd done cognitive behaviour therapy stuff, so I'm able to rationalise my own thoughts very easily. But this was peak COVID, so this was during 2021, where my business is very gym focused, exercise focused. People need to be in the gym. I don't have home workout clients. So in one aspect it was, okay, how am I going to keep myself afloat? Because I'm in Indonesia now. You can't go out to work if you need to make money. So there's no COVID payment. My business runs on the gyms being open, and the gyms weren't open worldwide at this point. So I think I had the symptoms of long COVID, but I also had burnout on top of it, because I'm constantly trying to think, how am I going to make money? How am I going to get back up? Because you're spending money, but you're not bringing it in. But I also don't have the physical or mental energy to think of any ideas, because I don't have any serotonin left, or my mental exhaustion. So I realised, okay, I've got burnout, but I've also got long COVID on top of that. And so those things together, and obviously not exercising and not doing things that are good for my body.
And not meeting with people either.
Yeah, exactly. Socially, it was awful. Really, really bad time. And I think on top of that as well, my cognitive function was just really bad from long COVID. So my memory wasn't great. I'd be forgetting things. I've got videos on my phone that I only found recently where I'd have recorded episodes of podcasts. Like, I never brought out a podcast. I don't even remember doing it. So I think I had a little bit of dissociation going on as well, because I had worked so hard to get my business into a place online where I could move to Indonesia. Then I, get impacted really, really badly with this health condition when I would have considered myself to be extremely healthy. So I got back into a state where I was thinking, how am I in this place? I wasn't necessarily thinking, oh, why me type of thing, but you know, financially or from a business perspective, you can figure those things out, but physically and mentally, that I wasn't, you know, things weren't working out for me no matter what I tried. So bringing it back to breath work, I couldn't do much. I wasn't able to exercise. I started doing ice baths every day because I put
For how long?
I'd say 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Probably started with 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Obviously your mental toughness is building up as well. Yeah. And for me, I'm like, okay, this is working for me. I'm able to accomplish this every day. This is a big achievement for me, because everything else in the day I'm probably asleep. So this is like the big highlight of my day. And it's also in place of my exercise routine, which felt really good to me. Okay, I'm getting a bit of my routine back, as well as physically I felt much more energetic because it's really good for mitochondria. You're also you know, decreasing inflammation in the body, so whatever, you know, virus is going around in my body, it's helping that. It's decreasing my heart rate when I'm in there. When I come out, I can see my heart rate is reduced. And then I found breath work. I don't know how, like I said, I can't even remember a lot of this time because my brain wasn't working very well. Anyway, started doing breath work to just kind of stretch out my lungs a little bit. And also I wanted a time out, because if you're constantly fatigued, constantly trying to think how will I fix my business, constantly trying to think how am I going to get healthier, I just wanted this hour to completely switch off. Yeah. And so by doing that sort of breath work, where you're doing, you know, 3-part breathing, you're doing a little bit of hyperventilation at the start. At the end, I am completely zoned out. My brain is hollow. There's nothing in there. And obviously my nervous system is a lot more relaxed than when I'm walking around with long COVID.
Can I just bring you to that point? I often feel that a lot of people, that when there is so much mind activity, and the other aspect of it is that we're often putting our attention outwards, that very few people tend to bring their attention inwards. It's not something that's commonplace. The mobile phone is literally taking attention as well. Yeah. So you could have very easily just lie there and, okay, you're tired and you can be in total self-misery, but you decided to do something about it. You weren't just spending your entire time looking into a phone. You started, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of responsibility here. Okay, you found ice packs, you got something out of it, which is a great motivator to keep going it. You got into the breathing aspect of it. I have obviously assumed that you were getting something out of it. But what you said there, you were taking 1 hour out of your day for you. Yeah. It's not always, I think it's tremendous. I have to confess, my work will take up lots. And it was only in the last 8 months ago I said, I'm doing that. And you literally have to carve it out though, because your entire day is gone. When do you take the hour out? What decision? In other words, regardless of what's on your calendar, do you take that hour out or that half hour out?
Yeah, like
what's it done for you?
It gives me clarity and it makes me feel more relaxed. And sometimes I don't have an hour. I wouldn't be doing breath work every single day for an hour. But back then, my day, I was literally living for either the ice baths or a bit of breathing, because that was, okay, that's my motivator. It's going to be hard to even get up and get there. That takes energy. But when I get there, I can relax and I have that reward. So actually, even though it was difficult, you do have the reward factor, which obviously is a great motivator. So I did notice that doing the breath work and the ice baths helped a lot with my energy, and my heart rate was starting to come down over time. Now this is months. I had COVID for over 10 months, long COVID, and this is when I started monitoring my own heart rate and seeing that I was improving.
So you honed in on your heart rate. So you used that as your metric to give you feedback.
Yeah, I didn't. I think it's mostly because it was what I could feel the most. I didn't focus so much on my breathing, because I didn't feel I was breathing really quick. It was, my heart rate was fast in the morning. So I'm waking up after what I think should have been a really good sleep, but actually with chronic fatigue, I don't know if it's a really good sleep. I'm just wrecked. So why is my heart rate going so fast or double what it would normally be? And why am I waking up with a really fast heart rate when I just slept for probably 16 hours? So I started doing it myself, and you know, from nursing I probably just wanted to know more. Why is this happening when I was so healthy before? How can I try to improve it? Let's try this. The ice baths were helping, the breathing was helping, and I kind of went from there. And eventually, bit by bit, I was able to go for a short walk, maybe 20 minutes, but I'd probably have to go for a nap after, and then it just improved bit by bit. So that was kind of my own, let's say, anecdotal study.
Were there times that you pushed it a bit too hard and
Yeah.
you were floored, and then you dialed it down
Yeah,
a bit?
100%. The type of exercise that I usually do is usually high intensity. So actually what I found then was I started doing just a little bit of exercise, not high intensity. Then once you kind of feel like you're able for it, you go for the high intensity. And then what I would find is if I did conditioning, I would feel in the middle of it, like I'd almost taste blood. Like it was like I'd smoked 100 cigarettes. That's what it would feel like. And it would be sore, my chest would be sore, my lungs would be sore. But at the time I thought it was unfitness. Because I'd taken so much time off exercise, I assumed, oh my God, I've gotten really unfit. So, and I kept doing the breath work and the ice baths because I knew they were working and I actually enjoyed them. But I never really put two and two together at the time that it was my lungs were damaged. And I actually had gotten chest x-rays and everything because I knew something was wrong, but everyone said, no, everything's normal. But actually, you know, I don't know, they're not going to see like your alveoli on a chest x-ray. So any person I went to with try and get something diagnosed, they just said my lungs are fine. Now I knew I'd long COVID, but on a scan, my lungs looked fine. So I don't know how I figured it out in the end.
I wonder, was there something else though? Because when the body isn't up to, when there's something going on, breathing is impacted.
Yeah.
Irrespective. We see it with diabetes, we see it with epilepsy.
Yeah.
We see it with different conditions aside from respiratory health. Breathing is often a giveaway.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you find it difficult to go up that flight of stairs, and there's also a relationship between our breathing pattern and the autonomic nervous system in terms of the baroreflex and heart rate variability. So you were working then with your breathing. So it wasn't just that the long COVID is feeding into a poor breathing pattern. You're actively working with your breathing so that you can improve your health via that mechanism. Because let's look at people with poor health. You can imagine somebody coming in here with poor health. How are they going to breathe? They don't have to have respiratory conditions. You say chronic heart failure, they come in, their breathless coming in. Is it the chronic heart failure which is causing the exaggerated breathing pattern? Or is the exaggerated breathing pattern feeding back into the chronic heart failure? And oftentimes we need to be looking at that feedback loop. So you spotted, or I don't know if that's the right word, but identify that breathing was a component. Let's work with your breathing and use that to bring you back in your journey.
Yeah, and then that obviously feeds back to how my mindset was, okay, this little bit helped today. So, you know, a little bit better, then maybe I pushed myself a little bit too hard one day in an exercise class. Okay, relax now, tomorrow no exercise, only go to sauna, ice bath, breathing, maybe not even, you know, breath work, let's say every time, but just deep breathing to relax myself. Yeah, slow, deep breathing so that my body is recovering a little bit, and that's, you know, feeding back to my brain, okay, something here is working, keep going, and you kind of build up your self-confidence again, that something's going right, mightn't have it all right, but something was going right. So
even if it's just marginal, you know then that you're, we as human beings, we're complex creatures. It's always often hard to stay motivated in any endeavour. You know, that kind of way when you feel that challenges are there.
Yeah.
But I think this is where there's an inner strength. We often get an inner strength based on, okay, our personality, our life experiences, but that 1% gain that we are getting, we know we're onto something. Yeah. It's kind of...
And I think those small achievements are what build up to the bigger ones, because if you're trying to aim for these huge accomplishments all the time, you'll probably be disappointed because it's such a long stretch to get there. If you actually just focus on the very small increments, then bit by bit you're building up your self-esteem, your confidence, and the bigger things then don't seem as big going forward. So it was a long journey, but ultimately it led me to what I'm doing now, which is kind of always what has happened in my life. I do something for myself, and then I think, oh, that's actually really helpful.
Why do you like working for yourself?
Why do I like working for myself? I like the freedom of it. That's definitely a personality thing now. I like to travel.
You don't want to have a boss over you.
No,
you reckon you can do it better?
Yeah, well, I think it's not even that. I
think it's good.
Yeah,
I work for myself.
Yeah,
I couldn't have a boss over me.
Yeah, it's hard at the same time. It is hard, and you've got to take a lot of criticism, but I think the main thing is you've got to know yourself that what you do is rewarding, and you are helping other people, and my method might be different to somebody else's, but that doesn't mean it's the wrong method. It's just a different way of doing things. So I won't be working for anybody else ever.
I said that to my mother-in-law about 25 years ago. I said I'd never work for anybody else ever in my life. And she just looked at me, and I knew she wasn't believing me. But it's amazing. And I actually love that character, because I think we need to be able to do these things for ourselves. Very often, there's there could be a tendency for people to kind of sit back and wait for things to happen, but it just doesn't happen that way. But do you find, is there something self-gratifying that when you were talking about tiny steps, I think it's a great way to go, in terms of the motivation, but also in terms of the habit forming. But when you look back, do you feel we as human beings, in terms of, we look back at something that we've accomplished, there's that sense of, I've done it, as opposed to somebody handing it to you?
Oh, definitely, yeah, because I've slogged for it, It's not easy work to get where I am now. If you want to set up your own business, if you have something that's a little bit different as well, if I've got something trying to teach people about breathwork, about breathing, about ice baths, heart rate training, and combining those all together, you really need to know what you're talking about to try and make people understand the value of it. Otherwise, it's not going to go well.
I think it's really important.
Yeah, so you've got to know, why it's important to you, and you've got to show other people how it's going to benefit them. Otherwise, they're not going to buy into it, are they? They're not going to commit, and they're not going to try it. So when I'm using the heart rate monitors, I am showing them with data how these techniques work, how your breathing can slow down your heart rate, how your breathing can speed up your heart rate if you're stressed, or if you're breathing in a certain way that will keep your sympathetic nervous system going. And I'm proving it, so you can question me, but I'll be able to give you an answer because it's there in the data. So people love the proof.
And are people skeptical?
Not after they see it. I was the one that was skeptical about breathing, about breath work, about ice baths, even about long COVID. I was thinking, what's going on here? I need to understand it. So I was the skeptical one. I have a very logical brain. And then when I'm doing these trials on myself, let's say experiments, doing the ice bath, doing the breathing, doing a couple of days without doing any of it, and look at the difference in heart rate and heart rate variability, how relaxed or unrelaxed I am, the proof is there. So people aren't skeptical, they're more curious, and they just want to see what they can do with their own breath. And then it's there in front of them, what they've actually achieved with their own breathing, or how they can overcome something like an ice bath, which initially people are really afraid of. And then they get into the ice bath, I teach them a breathing technique inside the ice bath, and they do 2 minutes, no problem. And then they get out and they're high as a kite, and then they're like, can I go again? And then they're motivated to do it again because they've done it once. So they've overcome the fear, which is brilliant, because then they can apply that to any situation on the outside world. I'm a bit afraid of it, but I'll try it and see how I get on. And then they're able to overcome it, do a bit of breathing when they're in times of stress, and then they're able to adapt to any stressful situation on the outside. So it's not just about going into an ice bath and sitting in the cold, or trying a bit of breath work. It's about applying it to different areas on the outside, which I think is really important.
I think the psychological aspect is huge.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes it's not been talked about, even when we do deliberate, say, breath holding with people, You know, we're putting them into a degree of air hunger. Sometimes I use the word suffocation. It's a very primordial fear response. It's controlled. There's nothing extreme about it. But you are training the brain not to react to stress. I think it's huge. And the ice bath is the same.
Yeah. And even in the heart rate training, it's the same. We might be doing a 20 or 30 second sprint, and I'm teaching people how to recover and breathe in their 30-second recovery time. Okay, bring down your heart rate a little bit.
How do you do it?
How do I tell them how to do it? Well, they usually will be very out of breath after doing a sprint on the assault bike or whatever, and they will be breathing through the mouth on the assault bike. But then I'll get them in their recovery time to breathe through the nose, breathe nice and slow if they can, push the breath down to the belly, get it out of the chest. And it takes them a while, you know, but after 2 or 3 breaths it does slow down, and the great thing is that they can actually see the effect of that on the TV. They can see their heart rate coming down. So if they've been sprinting and they're up in the red zone, which is the maximum, you know, up near your maximum heart rate, they can see that if they're breathing and recovering, pushing the breath down into the belly, that their heart rate comes down another a level down into orange zone. They're recovering a little bit, their breathing is recovering, their heart rate is recovering. Then when they go back to the sprint again, they're ready to go, they've more energy, more oxygen, they're ready to sprint again. Even if they end up doing a couple of mouth breaths, at least in the recovery part, they're recovering properly with their nasal breathing. So again, it's like high stress. Okay, bring myself out of that high stress, bring it down. It's the same thing, just applied to different situations.
And the tools you learn there are those same tools that you can bring into everyday life.
Yeah.
So when something is going wrong, things do go wrong.
Yeah.
But I would always say, you know, start off with small situations first, and using the breath. So you described there, you're talking about nose breathing. You're talking about taking a soft breath in through the nose. Okay, after high intensity exercise, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to have a few mouth breaths. At some point, then you're slowing down the speed of the exhalation, and it's that really slow and gentle exhalation that's stimulating the vagus nerve to bring down the heart rate. We should be all taught it though.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I was talking to you about the situation that, like any of us, if you're going into a job interview, I've had people come in here, and if I notice that somebody is coming in, and it's not because I'm in the breathing space, we all pick up on it. You know, how do we breathe when we get stressed? Faster, harder, upper chest, irregular breathing. But if we're breathing that way, how is that telling? What are we communicating to the person that we're going in to speak with? We're communicating to them that we're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Don't let your breathing give you away. You know, you want to go in. If you want to go in there and you want to really perform at your best, we need to know how to self-regulate. And that's even just standing outside the door. You're feeling your heart rate is a bit higher. As you talked about, Becca, how do we bring it down? Focus on the speed of the exhalation. Gently slow it down. It's so simple and so effective. Yeah,
and I'm trying to show people, especially for people that do a lot of high intensity training, a lot of fighters, and over in Indonesia, there is a lot of that. How, you know, if their heart rate is higher than it was in the previous class, you know, it's not that they've lost their fitness level in one day. There's something else going on there. There's an underlying stressor that they need to identify. So when their heart rate is higher than normal in an exercise class, you know, there's a sign that maybe they didn't sleep properly. Maybe they need to take a rest day. They've been overtraining. Maybe they need to slow down, do some meditation or some breathing, or do the ice baths and the sauna so they can come out of that high, you know, their highly stressed state or their sympathetic state and spend more time in the parasympathetic state. So it's about, you know, identifying, okay, how do I need a little bit more time in down-regulating my nervous system, and what are my options for doing that? Because breathing is one, ice bath is one, going into the sauna is one. There's a lot of different methods. So you need to be able to have that awareness, okay, you know, how much time have I been spending in this really highly stressed state, which is for most of us most of the time if you don't take that time out. And I feel like when people do actually lie down to do a little bit of breathing, they'll obviously have, their thoughts will be going, they struggle to get into it because they're not used to being relaxed. But then when they actually do manage to get into a really, really relaxed state, you're almost floating because they're not used to being that relaxed, and that's when they can, you know, have a timeout. They can, their body can recover better, their muscles can recover better, your brain can recover better, and you can have any bit of time you can have in your a little bit more time in your parasympathetic state is obviously going to help overall, even if it's only 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be an hour of breathing, but a little bit every day is better than 1 hour a week if you can just do a little bit of breathing in the morning.
So you're saying that the recovery is an integral part, that sometimes we feel that we have to be pushing, but there's a point at which we can push it too hard, we get burnout.
Yeah.
That we have evolved, we can cope with a certain amount of stress, but we need a recovery. So the recovery, and it's not just that the recovery is bringing us back to where we are. Recovery and improving heart rate variability and balance of the autonomic nervous system. It's giving us the resilience then to cope with the stress, so we can push it.
Yeah, so we have that, even with the training, you can't keep pushing at a certain level. Your muscles aren't going to recover. You're going to have lactic acid build up. You need a break at some point. So if you allow yourself to recover, then obviously you're going to perform better the next time you come in to train. Your heart rate will be a little bit lower. Even when you wake up the next morning, your heart rate will be a little bit lower. So in order to be able to perform at your best, you need to be able to recover just as much, if not better. So when we're doing the high intensity training, I always say to them, work hard but recover harder. So because otherwise, how can you keep going? How can you get better at your training if you're not able to refuel your body, reset and recover in order to go again? And then often we'll go into the ice bath after. So you're going from your sympathetic training state with a little bit of breathing in the recovery, and then into the ice bath after. So it's like showing people the complementary practices, because I don't think you can have you really good performance, or even overall be performing optimally, or have your health at its peak condition if you're not doing both. If you're not able to train but also recover, and be able to speed up and perform when you need to, but then relax and recover afterwards as well, and understand that your nervous system is at the core of all of that, and how to recognize when one needs to be pushed up and when it needs to be down regulated as well. So
you're not just training the body, but you're training breathing as well as part of that.
Yeah.
And you're not just training breathing, but you're training the brain.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And it's like the all about the mind-body connection. Like, you can't have one without the other. It has to be aligned. Otherwise, one will be out of sync and something won't be working for you.
And it's not just our thoughts are fueling our breathing, but there's also the bottom-up communication.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like when I do, let's say, some reframing thoughts, or I'm doing some cognitive behaviour therapy stuff with clients, that's all like a top-down approach. But breathwork and breathing and ice baths is a body-up approach. So when you have the two, you've got double the options, and you've got, your brain and your body are in coherence. So in times of like overthinking, or when trying to rationalize your thoughts just isn't an option because your brain is too much, do a bit of breathing, or else jump. If you're really, really overthinking, jump into the ice bath. You won't be thinking anymore. For those 60 seconds or 2 minutes, the brain will go blank, because the only thing that you have to focus on is the breath in that moment. So if you really want a time out, that would be my first port of call for an overthinker that just can't seem to relax into the breath, or can't rationalize their thoughts. Jump into the ice. Then obviously you've got the breath where you can just slow down. And obviously when you're doing breathing and the ice baths, your physiology is changing, you're influencing the chemicals in your brain, which will help, because they're like, that's like a natural antidepressant. So if you're able to influence the brain using your breath and deliberate cold exposure, then you can regulate your thoughts a little bit better, because you've been able to slow down a little bit. And the other way around, if you're in a space where you can rationalize your thoughts, then you won't be putting yourself in fight or flight mode with your overthinking or jumping to conclusions, and then your body won't be as stressed as a result. So it's all about it's a cycle. So there's two options. You go from the top down or the body up, and I think if you have the option of both, then you've got a really comprehensive approach to managing your mind and your body at the same time.
I would agree. And I think as well, with a quieter mind, you're more open to, you're talking about different ideas, putting the question out there. If you were a 20-year-old, you're wondering what am I going to do next, it doesn't happen quickly.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have it in our society that, okay, jump onto some website, you hit click, product comes the next day, that will automatically translate into our life. It's slower, isn't it? It's worth. How do you feel in terms of that speed? When you did it move at a speed according to what you expected, or was it different?
I think we put a lot of pressure. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, but also for me, looking at the world now and work and life in general, people are really impatient, because back when I was going to college, we didn't have WhatsApp, we did have Instagram, but it wasn't as popular as it is now. TikTok, all these things that are taking away our attention span, expecting to have life figured out in 2 seconds. So on one side, yes, you've got so many more opportunities, but on the other side, people can get lazy with, actually going for something. They try it for a day or two and they're like, oh, I didn't really like that. There's a difference between really trying something and not enjoying it or wanting to give it up, and actually just having too many options that you're not committing to anything. And that's one thing about social media and everything online. You've got so many options that, it's taking away your distraction. It's using up your dopamine. You can't get your enjoyment from actual things in the present moment because you're distracted by social media. And you've got decision fatigue because there's so much going on, but then you're also looking for things on the outside and not really taking a minute for yourself. And if you actually just have that time to yourself, you'll figure it out for yourself, but it won't be instantaneous. It won't be in one click, like you said, and it's going to take a little bit of hard work. So and
to trust it's going to work
exactly
out.
And I think we're getting better at it, but that intuition, you're not going to be connecting with your body and your trust and your gut, let's say, and your intuition if you're distracted by a phone. So this is why it's really important to take 5 or 10 minutes, or even asking yourself, what do I really enjoy? Who do I enjoy being around? What activities make me happy? Or that's the way you figure out kind of what path you're going to go down, not by looking at online stuff and comparing yourself as well. The impact of social media. Oh, she's doing this. People could be looking at my life over in Bali during COVID when my business was on the floor, thinking that how lucky am I to be over in the sun, when actually it's physically and mentally I'm not what you think I am. So I think taking time out for ourselves and figuring out what we enjoy and what we don't enjoy is a really good way of figuring out what we do. And then kind of going, it's going to take a couple of years. There's very few people that figure out exactly what they want to do when they're 18 or 19 or 20. And I think I enjoy life a lot more now because I'm kind of, I don't have a set schedule. I kind of think, right, let's go with this, let's see how it works. I'm really passionate about it, I really enjoy it. If it doesn't work out, it's okay. At least for me it was a success. Your best shot. Yeah, and it's not a failure, as the mindset before was if it didn't work out, it was a failure, when actually it just wasn't for me. So I think people have a big fear of failure these days because they're embarrassed about it, or there's a lot of shame involved, but really it's not failure, is it? It's just something that didn't work out.
Exactly, yeah. So by your mistakes what's going to work out in the future. Exactly. And I think the other thing is, if you are in a role that you don't like, why not apply ourselves to the best that we can apply, because we learn something in that process. Yeah. So there was another few notes. What do you do about your mobile phone? What are your habits?
The phone is always on Do Not Disturb, always. So no matter what, I'll pick up my messages when I want to pick up my messages. So there'll be no notifications on my phone at all. I would never get anything done if I had notifications. So everything from Instagram, messages, WhatsApp, everything. I've got a Fitbit, so I don't have an alarm on my phone. This one is vibrating alarm, so it doesn't even make a big loud noise. This just vibrates to wake me up in the morning, which I love. So first thing in the morning, especially when I'm in a time zone that's 8 hours or 7 hours ahead of here, there's nobody online in the morning, which is good. So in the morning I'll do, usually now I have this morning routine, I'll do 5 or 10 minutes of breathing. Usually energetic breath to wake me up a little bit. I'm already
hyperventilation.
Yeah, I'm already relaxed. I don't need to be more relaxed. And I think people with breathing, if they don't learn correct techniques, they will be doing a breath that's for bed in the morning, and they'll be doing a breath for waking up at night, which isn't good. So obviously different breathing styles influence our nervous systems in different way. So I'll do a bit of energetic breathing in the morning. I'll watch, I save reels on my phone. So motivational things or knowledgeable things or inspiring things for me. So they're saved on my Instagram, so I don't go into my notifications, but I'll flick through about 10 of them. Usually just motivating things or positive stuff, and I'll just watch about 10 of them after I've done the breathing. Then I'll have my coffee, and then I'll check my phone. And I'll check what's important and what's not. I'll go into the WhatsApp, and I'll see, okay, what's work and what's just general messages, and then I'll decide when I'm going to actually go into them. I'm on Instagram, so I need to be on Instagram. I'll check my notifications, but I'll prepare the content off the phone, and then I'll just upload it later on. But I wouldn't be big on, I know how much it can take away your distraction. If you're scrolling 2 hours gone, and you've got, for what? Just, you're not even getting anything out of it. It's just a rabbit hole. So I'm pretty good. I usually record my stories on my camera. So I'm actually not on Instagram. I'll be walking around, okay, hi guys, doing my few bits. I'll do all my work, and then I'll upload them later, so that it's not on there and then. It's done in my time. And otherwise I'd be on the phone the whole time. But I know how much, it can distract me. And I sometimes if I'm online at the night, I am scrolling and watching stories or whatever of my friends, and then I'll be like, okay, that's it now till tomorrow. And then I'll just repeat the routine. So first thing in the morning is a definite no, because I want my mind to be right in the morning, and I want to be in the right energy for the day, I guess. So I'll just do a bit of breathing. Doesn't have to be an hour. 5 minutes is enough. Watch those reels, which influence my mindset for the day. I'm quite a positive person anyway, but it's nice to have like a little extra boost, because whatever you focus on in general, but especially in the morning after you've had a sleep, is going to influence what you see in the rest of your day. So if you're scrolling first thing in the morning, then that's influencing your, it's the neuroplasticity. If you focus on crap in the morning, on garbage, on I don't know what, just comparing yourself first thing in the morning, you're already in a negative mindset. So for the rest of the day, you will more than likely only see negative in the day, because you've primed your brain that way to see only negative. Whereas for me, I watch the inspiring stuff. I don't have any influence of social media or messages or anything. Even if I've had bad news, I'm not looking at it first thing in the morning. I'll read the message later. It might not be bad news, but I don't want to look at it first thing. So I'll watch those inspiring reels, motivational quotes or whatever, and then that's already primed my brain to see the good in the day. So not to say that there might not be any bad in the day, but you'll focus more on the good, because that's how you've primed your brain for the day. So first thing in the morning and last thing at night, I'll make sure that what goes in is positive, because that's going to influence our subconscious as well in the night. So I'll usually do a bit of breathing before I go to bed, or like a nighttime meditation. If I need to, if I'm really tired, I don't, but I make sure that what I've looked at or who I've interacted with before I'm going to bed is like, a positive conversation. Otherwise, I have the positive conversation with myself. Even if I've had a bad day, I'm like, okay, today wasn't great now, but it's okay, we got through it. Tomorrow will be better. So at least you're kind of influencing your brain to see the good in the day again, even if there's been a little bit of negative, so that you can sleep on it. Your brain has already been given that message, and you wake up, in a more positive, with a more positive attitude. Then I reinforce that positive attitude again by watching all of those videos again. So that's like my I guess routine, or my habit with my phone, and how much I know it can influence me in a negative way. So I just have a strategy of no phone in the morning, only positive stuff, not toxic positive stuff, just nice stuff or inspiring stuff. And the same before I go to bed. If I've watched a documentary, I like true crime, so I make sure that I don't go to bed on the true crime stuff. Otherwise, that's how my brain is going to develop overnight. So I'll just put on YouTube, I'll type in like something funny, and then I'll just watch that and go to bed on that. So yeah.
That's funny. I like true crime as well. And there's some great stuff on Netflix at the moment too, but some of it is pretty horrific. It gives you an awful insight into the minds of human beings, you know.
Yeah.
So Becca, I'm just conscious of time, and 5-year plans. Do you agree with them? Do you kind of go with the flow?
Going with the flow for me is much better, because if I have a plan and it doesn't work out, I get stressed about it.
And they never work out, by the way.
Yeah,
they always go in some direction anyway.
So I have a vision, let's say.
Yes.
And I might get there in 1 year, I might get there in 10, but it's taken me a long time to even have the energy to be able to do what I'm doing now after getting over long COVID. So that's why I'm all go, because I'm trying to put as much energy into what I'm doing now. Firstly, because I can. Secondly, because, you know, if I got COVID again, like that's one of my huge fears. Like, is that going to impact me again? And I don't know how, I honestly don't know how I would do it again. I'd obviously have the strategies there, but I just wouldn't wish it on anyone. So I'm trying to put as much energy into what I love, what's helping people, and see where it goes from there. So I've already seen that, you know, I've come home to Ireland this week, and it's like so much demand for what I'm doing and events, which is great. I'll go back to Indonesia next week. I'm going to Sydney to do an event in September. So if I can dot around globally a couple of times a year, I'd love to do that. And I think the best thing is to just stay doing what I'm doing, and I'm sure the opportunities will come, and I'll add on more and more. So obviously I'm doing the functional breathing, so I'll have that done in a couple of weeks' time. So that'll just be another tool I'll have, and we'll go from there.
Good stuff. Great attitude.
Yeah.
Becca, for people to find you on Instagram.
Yeah. My personal Instagram is Becca Gillen. The breathwork and the ice baths and the heart rate training is bpm.method on Instagram, and my email is becca@beccagillen.com.
Excellent. Yeah. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks very much, Becca.